Welcome back. You're still watching SA Today. Now, ANC National Chairperson Gwede Mantashe is delivering this afternoon an online political lecture hosted by the ANC Sarah Baartman Region. The online political lecture is under the theme Organisational Renewal Post-Lockdown. Let's listen in now.
Listen, but ultimately participate. We design the program for the day as follows. Now that I've done with the welcoming, we must immediately after give to the National Chairperson, who will present for almost 30 minutes on a particular thematic area, which is the organizational renewal post the lockdown. And after we'll have our own two respondents, which is Comrade Mamulindwe Dunjwa and Comrade Dion DeVos. We will accord them 10 minutes each, and it will be discussions after that. And after discussions, we'll allow Utato Mkwati to come back and reconcile all the issues that are raised and the deliberations by this particular plenary. And it will be summary and way forward and closer by our own regional secretary immediately after. But I must as well alarm comrades that within our midst there is media, notably Bay TV, Herald, SABC is here, they are here. We expect comrades maximum discipline. And the lecture as well is coming.
All right, so we'll continue monitoring that. The online lecture that's going to be presented by the National Chairperson of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, being run by the Sarah Baartman Region, and they're talking about organisational renewal. We're monitoring that feed for you. We'll get a sense of what the National Chairperson will have to say in a few moments' time. I think the introductions have been done. He's expected to speak for about 30 minutes or so, and then I'm thinking he'll probably take a few questions. But people listening in intently waiting to hear from the ANC's National Chairperson, Gwede Mantashe. All of that still to come, so stay with us for that. Let's try and listen in again. All right, okay, doesn't seem to be anything there at the moment. Yeah, we can't tell you much more about that actually, because we don't know what he's going to say specifically. It's still to come. All right, in the meantime though, we are a little bit earlier on, we're at the WHO. That's the other sort of presentation that we've been monitoring for you, and the update this afternoon really was about the vaccines. But I'm told that we now back at the online lecture where Gwede Mantashe, we're expecting to start speaking shortly.
The chair of the province, Comrade Lubabalo Oscar Mabuya Tata Sengo, was amongst the midst, and as well as the entire entourage of the PEC. Thank you very much. With those few words, you are welcome. Let me hand over to Tata Gwede Mantashe to take us through.
Moses Kara, Program Director, members of the NSC who are here, I haven't seen any. Members of the PEC, Ubejula and Mbonile Aba Uslalo Walap, and I want a few Omtwe or Lindelwa Tunja, a group of them. I'm sure many others I haven't seen. Members of the RSC, Skara, Sarah Baartman Region, which is punching above its weight. It will continue doing so if it continues to engage itself in political education. Members of all branches who attended this lecture, everyone who took an interest in the lecture, whether you are a member or not a member, welcome all of you. I was asked to talk about organizational renewal post-COVID. The first exercise I engaged myself in was the reality of the matter is that there is no post-COVID. The COVID is going to be with us for a long time. The only difference is the intensity of the infections. Therefore, what we should be preparing our members and our branches is to run organization alongside COVID. You know, if we run for cover, we fear COVID, it chases you and finds you. It is important for us to prepare ourselves to do it with COVID as a reality in society. The first thing I want to highlight is the fact that organizational renewal in itself is quite a complicated concept in many ways. One is that it is talking to an organization that exists, but is beginning to feel that it is weakening in many aspects of its work. And my own view is that when you talk about the ANC is quite old. I will come back to that point, but the leadership of the ANC is relatively younger. I will come back to the and characterize that reality. The second one is that it talks to objective of renewal as a project. So you don't renew for the sake of renewal. There should be clear objectives of renewing an organization. Thirdly is that the issues that need immediate attention on behalf of the people. It is therefore not a renewal for its own sake. If you have an organization, it has no capacity to take up issues. You have no organization. You have warm bodies. Now, the ANC is an old organization with relatively young leadership and membership. Somebody asked me, are you young? I said, compared to Mandela and Tambo and Lutuli, I am a baby. And that's the reality that is there. And this makes it complex to link the current with the history of the organization. Because what we do today should talk to what the organization is known to be standing for. If we fail to do that, we really need a serious program to renew the organization. When many of us talk of a weak organization, we imagine an ANC that was operating under conditions of illegality, where discipline and security were intertwined. Now, what we are ignoring is the fact that the organization has been open to all, and therefore it is a mass organization. But what we deprived ourselves of, which we can still try to bridge that, is the analysis of the transition from conditions of illegality to conditions of legality. We never spent time on that. You know, when the ANC was unbanned, the UDF was dissolved immediately, gave way to the ANC. No discussion of the mass character of the UDF and ability to reach out to various aspects of society. That discussion was not there. We gave in correct decision, but lazy in terms of preparing for it. And that is catching up with us today. That's why we talk of organizational renewal today, is ability to facilitate discussions which include revisiting the gap we left in terms of transitioning from condition of illegality to condition of legality, from an organization with few members who were disciplined, who were security conscious, who survived in a small network, comparatively speaking, to a broad church that the ANC is. We need to actually take time to say, these are the gaps we left in not entertaining that discussion. Now, the Therefore, it is this gap that imposes the discussion on organizational renewal all the time, and the need to take few steps backwards and face those who are lagging behind. People who end up representing the organization in all spheres of government, for example, will have limited experience. Others will have no basic tools to run a basic structure, whether in government or in the ANC, but they will find themselves in leadership positions. And when we must deal with the shortcomings of that reality, we are found wondering, how do we deal with the shortcomings of that reality? Now, political school combined with academic education are not a luxury, but a necessity if we talk of organizational renewal. Now, in our structures, we must have a roll call of those who are enrolled with OR Tambo Political School. We must check how many are enrolled with an academic college. Then we will not only be counting numbers of years in the organization when you must be elected. We'll also be able to say, Oscar Mabuyane is here. He is having 10 years plus in the organization, but we'll be able to say he was prepared in SASCO structures. He was prepared in youth league structures. He served in many other structures in the organization, and therefore look into program that he was taken through. Then we're quantifying the quality of a leader that is deployed to a responsibility, not just numbers. Now, then we'll not only be counting those numbers, we'll also be quantifying skills developed over time. Then we'll be in a position to do election and selection. One of the current papers that is being discussed, I'm not going to get into it, is selection of candidates for deployment. Many say it must be based on academic qualifications and so forth. We're arguing, some of us, that it should be a combination, because we must combine loyalty and competence. Because there will be comrades in the ANC who never had the luxury of going to school, but who are activists in their own right. You know, let me not use an example in the province because I may tremble on the toes of others. You know, in Friday, in KZN, there's a chap who has never been to school a single day. He's the councillor of the ANC, called him Didit. That chap, when he raises a problem about the damage left by old coal mines in Shobane, Friday, Coronation, and all those, he takes photos and say a goat suffocated in that ditch that was left by the mines. And he does that to everybody, every day. And that is the quality of an activist of the ANC who is there. But the more important issue is that as we do that, we must not ignore the importance of quality. That means the role of academic qualifications. For example, let me give you one thing. You know, you read it results the audit, Zomaspala. DA is having 79% clean audits and all those things. All the provinces run by the ANC struggle to have clean audits. And I don't know, because it happens 1 year after the year after the year, whether we have the capacity in our structures to pay attention to that gap and say, in Sarah Baartman, who are the communities who are going to pay attention to the results of the audits in municipalities and be able to call the municipalities to account? And if we can't do that, we must appreciate the fact that we are not going to modernize the ANC as a party that is a liberation movement, but a governing party. So we can't be a governing party that is indifferent to the quality of work we do when we have a responsibility to govern. So organizational renewal is not only about structures of the organization, it's about realizing the reality of us being a governing party now. So what they need to do, therefore, is ability to do more than just door to door, distribution of pamphlets, ability to have capacity to do complicated analysis, and many. Now, that structure must be able to take up issues. Let me give you a few examples. Structures of the ANC must be at the cutting edge of providing hope to society during the COVID-19. COVID-19, everybody, I went to my village in Kala one time, and I went for a week, and I discovered that there were 3 people who were waiting for being buried in one weekend in a village. And I asked, where are the structures of the ANC when the situation is this desperate? If the structures of the ANC cannot take up that challenge, then we must appreciate we are in trouble, and that trouble is not going to disappear until ANC structures develop the capacity to educate people about COVID-19 as a reality that will be with us in a long time. Do we have the capacity as to mobilize communities against this pandemic? This means it is premature to talk of post-COVID-19, but then to mobilize communities to adjust, adapt their lives to the world with this pandemic, observe the health prescription religiously, save and mobilize livelihoods. We must not only save lives, we must save lives and also save livelihoods. Now, let me just digress a little bit. In the cabinet, 4 of us were infected by COVID-19. All of us are back working. Now, the narrative was, as ministers, nobody fumene i-vaccine ngabe Russia zihlaba zodwa. Thina siyaphela zona ziyazihlaba ngala. That's not the issue. It's the determination in confronting a disease. Skara says, I said, COVID. That is the fighting spirit that you must have when you are infected by this. Unfortunately, our education system it only trains us to be employees. We look for a job. We never had the education system that prepares us to create jobs. Even if you employ 1 or 2 people, you are contributing in dealing with the crisis of unemployment in society. And that contribution is valuable. This will go a long way in saving the organization from infighting and fighting for deployment. Now, having said that, it will require maturity among ourselves. We are from the Eastern Cape, we're many in Gauteng. When we have a chance to be alone and discuss, we say, if you want to make progress, you are from the Eastern Cape, move out of the province. Because the energy in the province is spent almost wholly on destroying one another, attacking one another. If you are developing and you are growing and you become a target, as a result of that, if you want to make progress, go out of the province. And I think it's an issue that this province must take up as part of renewing the organization, that for Scar and Jadai to develop, it doesn't need to move out of Sarah Baartman. He can develop here and be at the cutting edge of development. Now, we must develop a coherent message for the ANC. We must take up the issue of shortage of PE and frontline workers. If frontline workers say in hospitals there is a shortage of PPEs, it should be the ANC that is renewed, that is readily available to assist and take up that struggle. If we can't do that, we must appreciate that we're going to become irrelevant. Then we'll appreciate the agency. We will attach to the organizational renewal with purpose the issue of taking up issues affecting us. We must take up issues of corruption at local level. We talked to some of the comrades. Comrade Oscar will remember this, that, listen, big narrative is that there's corruption. We raised 500 billion rand for COVID interventions. And the narrative grew that 500 billion rand has disappeared in our pockets because there were few cases who were actually caught getting tenders irregularly. As a result of that, the fact that 4.4 people received the 350 rand because they are not working, and the fact that about 7,000 people received additional amount on their social grants is disappearing because an ANC that is not renewed allow a negative narrative to take root and not take the responsibility of saying no, but the reality of the matter. We have Graham, mute. We must be able to take up those issues and counter the propaganda that is aimed at harming the ANC. A renewed ANC is an ANC that has a capacity to counter. Graham Goliath, mute. So it means we must be able to take up a narrative and challenge it. Now, then when you do these basic steps, activists will emerge. Then you'll have to take them back to basic political education. Take them through the basic values of the African National Congress, because it is these values that distinguishes a cadre from a person who is around. Humility, the ability to subject yourself to criticism and take it and absorb it with humility. You must appreciate that. You must be certain. Because it disrupts the process. So the issue that is important is that selflessness is to give your whole being to the work of the organization. And the sacrifice, you give up your time, you sacrifice, you dedicate yourself, you have integrity. The question, though, is whether we live these values. Then those activists must also appreciate the characters of the ANC, the mass character of the ANC. An ANC that is removed from the people is not the ANC. The ANC must be rooted among the people. That is the mass character of the ANC. The revolutionary character of the ANC is based on the distinguishing values of the ANC. That character of appreciating that, sometimes when we are criticized, we are thieves, we make an argument that is headless, that says, namabulu ayesiba, meaning that we want to be measured from the lowest common denominator. Now, we can't be measured from the lowest common denominator if we're revolutionaries. If we're revolutionaries, society must be expected to put us above ordinary and judge us accordingly. The non-racial character of the ANC, many things where we call ourselves in derogatory name. We're dealing with a case in the NEC where a leading member of the ANC went to a colored community and called the Mama Postman. And that case created a lot of conflict that we are not understanding the non-racial character of the ANC. We are not discussing a national question enough. The liberation movement character. We are a liberation movement that contests election. Now, let me, as I move towards concluding, Comrade Skara, the new tendencies that I imagine, one, eagerness to destroy one another, but using the cover of cleaning the organization. We're cleaning the organization, but we're targeting individuals for destruction. And I call that, if you can look it closely, it has nothing to do with cleaning the organization. It is a revolution that is beginning to devour its own children. And it's an issue that we must look into. One time when I was young, I was traveling through a revolution in France. I got stronger the cleaning of the organization. And a revolution devoured its own children and ultimately devoured Robespierre himself. That is the tendency that we must look into, we must guard against. It's very strong in this province. I must say that. It's very strong that everybody is an angel except the person you want to destroy. We must work on that issue. It's a terrible tendency. It destroys the organization. The second one, I could go to a list of them. This tendency of being easy to just plunge into the president of the organization, attack him. You know, I describe it as a choreographed attack on the president, where you'll find somebody in PE writing an open letter to the president, somebody in Northern KZN writing a letter, another one from somewhere writing a letter, all of them attacking this president. And it appears to be a mass movement that is very unhappy with the president. And the reality of the matter is to weaken the pillars of the organization, with the presidency being one of those pillars. It appears revolutionary, but if you look into it closely, it is counter-revolutionary. Now, the point I want to make is, you know, I was Secretary General for 10 years. Most difficult period for any Secretary General, I boast about that. But one thing that we actually did was to say, which I was criticized of protecting President Zuma all the time. I always emphasize it's not about President Zuma. It's about the office he's occupying. They will protect that office so that the ANC doesn't get into a free fall decline. And I can boast here, you can tell me if I'm wrong, we kept that commitment up to the end. That's why it becomes important for all of us to subject ourselves to a discipline of respect for your decisions. If a decision is taken in a structure where you serve, whether you agree with it or not, you never go out and say, this is the decision, I disagree with it. Because that decision is your decision. You must be loyal to your decision if you are a cadre. And if you want to raise it, we'll raise again in the meeting of the structure, if you want it reviewed. I think we can talk about organizational renewal from various angles. I took a decision to come and tackle it from an organizer perspective, because those are the people who are actually having the lifeblood of the organization. And then commissars will come and add the political aspect to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the political lecture. I've been instructed by the chair not to do a summary of what we have delivered, and I promise not to. Leadership that is present here, everyone, I greet you all. My name is Yandi Swavaha. I'm the Deputy Chairperson of the region. I am co-chairing with the Regional Chairperson, Comrade Sarah. I just want us to take note that the political lecture is covered live at Eastern Cape TV, which is formerly known as eBay TV. So, and also the channel is 260 on the STV, and also on national and provincial ANC Facebook page. Also as well on Eastern Cape Herald Live. So those that couldn't connect, we can advise them to go and watch there. Comrades, just before we take discussions, I'll allow two comrades to do a brief response.
All right, so we're going to come out of that. That was the ANC's National Chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, delivering an online political lecture hosted by the ANC's Sarah Baartman Region. The online political lecture was given under the theme Organisational Renewal Post-Lockdown. He says, though, that there's nothing post about this. This is something that was going to be with us for some time and required managing as time passes. He began with a giving a little context, talking about the phases the party has been through over time, moving from an illegal organisation towards a legal one, from an organisation that had a few disciplined members right through to a mass church that it's become today. And the organisation often needing to look back to be able to better engineer the renewals required. He spoke about some of the challenges and attitudes within the organisation that members needed to interrogate. He talked about the party needing to take the lead on a local level, especially around issues such as COVID-19, saying that the ANC, if it's not renewed, will allow a narrative that can be compromised by external propaganda. He was also, towards the end of his contribution, was concerned about some of the tendencies, he says, that seem to be coming through, where members are destroying each other under the guise of cleaning the organisation. He was also concerned about the culture of attacking party leadership, which he described as being counter-revolutionary. All right, we're going to leave it there. They were talking now, having a discussion about this political lecture that they received. We'll be back after this.